Hey y'all, welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. On Monday, I made these delicious chicken bacon ranch lettuce wraps. I'm trying to be more carb conscious this week because we will be out of town for most of next week and eating out a lot. But there is provolone cheese on here, as well as tomatoes, and of course the chicken bacon and ranch, and also some everything seasoning. So now I'm going to show you how I put these together. On Tuesday, we had a simple spaghetti night, so I just browned up a pound of ground beef, added a jar of spaghetti sauce and a few extra spices, and let that simmer. So I did serve mine over a spaghetti squash. I just split that in half. That's usually a pain, but you could poke some holes in it, pop it in the microwave for like 5 minutes to soften it up to make that process a little easier. So then I just took a spoon and I scooped out all of that weird stringy stuff and all the seeds and just tossed that out. So then I'm going to be putting that on a foil-lined cookie sheet and I'm going to be drizzling it with olive oil. And then I just took my little brush and spread that all over the inside surface. So to season it up here, I'm using some garlic salt and pepper. I'm just going to turn those face side down and then I'm going to roast those in the oven at 375 degrees for 45 minutes. And when it comes out, it should pull away from the sides pretty easily. So I did make some spaghetti noodles for Josh and the kids, as well as some garlic breadsticks. These are just the frozen and great value kind. Here is the kids' plates. They split a breadstick and I let them try some cucumber. They both tried it, but they did not like it. Here is my plate. I put a good serving of that meat sauce over the squash and topped it with plenty of Parmesan cheese. And then I have a side salad topped with some tomatoes and cucumbers. And I did drizzle that with some of the Bolthouse Farms ranch dressing. Up next, I'm going to be making some fried cabbage and smoked sausage. So for the ingredients, of course, I have a head of cabbage as well as the smoked sausage. For some seasonings, I have some onion powder, salt, pepper, paprika, and parsley, as well as some red wine vinegar, minced garlic, and butter. So basically, I'm just going to get everything chopped up and throw it into a cast iron skillet until that sausage has browned up and the cabbage has wilted down and got a little bit tender. And here is the final product. I topped it with some parsley for color. This was so easy to make. I loved it. If anyone's interested in this recipe, it will be linked in the description box as always. That was dinner for Wednesday. On Thursday, I made some Instant Pot pork carnitas. So I started off with an almost 4-pound boneless pork shoulder butt roast. I just cut that into large chunks and threw that on into my pot. Next, I'm going to be seasoning it up with some chili powder, cumin, oregano, cinnamon, and some kosher salt. And then I'm going to add in a good spoonful of minced garlic. I'm going to be using the zest and juice from one orange. The recipe actually called for a grapefruit, But I've never had that before, and a lot of people in the comments said that they used an orange and it turned out great, so that's just what I did. And I just stirred all that around to make sure that all those spices got distributed. I started off with a spoon, but that just wasn't cutting it, so I did get in there with my hands, and I was just basically rubbing in that spice mixture to all sides of the meat. So for the last ingredient, I did toss in a bay leaf, and then I hit my manual button on the Instant Pot and set the time for 35 minutes, and I did let it natural release for 10 minutes. So here is what it looked like when it was done. I just took a slotted spoon and carefully removed that meat from the juices onto a cookie sheet. So I took 2 forks and I shredded it up. It shredded super easily, and I was being extra careful to not scratch up my pan. Also discarded all of the big chunks of fat. So I popped this underneath my broiler for about 4 minutes to crisp up those edges. I served this on some warm carb-balanced tortillas, and I topped mine with some sour cream, feta cheese, cilantro, and some avocado slices that I seasoned with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I also drizzled some lime juice over the top, and these were amazing. I will definitely be making these again. So that pork carnita recipe made a ton. So on Friday we had the leftovers, but I did make it into a bowl this time, and I served it over some Mexican cauliflower rice. This was my first time having it, and I loved it. It was so easy to make, and I'm going to show you how I put it together. So I started off by adding in some olive oil to my skillet, and I just let that heat up, and then I tossed in my minced garlic and sauteed that for a couple of minutes. Then I'm going to go ahead and toss in my frozen rice cauliflower. I think that was like a 10-ounce bag, or you could just use a head of cauliflower that you pulse up in your food processor if that's what you prefer. So next I'm going to season it up with some cumin, salt, some chili powder, even though the recipe didn't call for that, as well as some onion powder. And I'm just going to give that a quick stir to make sure that all of the seasonings got spread around good and to break up those big chunks of cauliflower. So for the last ingredients, I'm going to be adding in some chicken broth and then 2 good spoonfuls of tomato paste. And I'm just going to stir all that around, and I'm going to let it simmer until I can no longer see that tomato paste and until that chicken broth reduces. And that was it. Like I said, super easy, and this was so flavorful. On Saturday, I made a garlic butter tomato mozzarella chicken dish. I made this not too long ago, so I just threw together a quick marinade of minced garlic, olive oil, rice vinegar, Italian seasoning, and some salt and pepper, and I just let that sit on my counter for 20 minutes. So while my oven was preheating, I went ahead and tossed in 2 tablespoons of butter to melt in the dish, and then I tossed in my cherry tomatoes, followed by 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar and some minced garlic. Also used some thyme leaves for the first time, and I'm not too sure how I feel about them. They taste kind of weird, but maybe I just have to get used to it. I also tossed in some onion powder and some salt and pepper. And then for the last ingredient, for the tomatoes, I'm just going to toss in some honey, and then I'm going to stir all of that together to make sure that everything got really good coated. And then I'm just going to kind of scoot all those tomatoes to the sides of the dish so that I can make room for the chicken in the middle. So I'm just going to cook that at 425 for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to pull it out and top it with some mozzarella cheese and pop it underneath the broiler for a few minutes until it gets this nice golden brown and bubbly look. How pretty is that? I served mine with some asparagus on the side. I just steamed it, and then I tossed it in some butter, garlic salt, and Parmesan cheese. Also had some leftover cauliflower Mexican rice, so I went ahead and threw that on my plate as well. I'm also currently obsessed with these Coke Zeros in the cherry flavor, and I did make one of these pastaronis in the fettuccine Alfredo flavor for Josh and the kids since they don't really care for asparagus. But that's going to wrap up this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.